One. And we are live. Hi. Oh my God. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Moms, the number four Trans Kids podcast. Me llamo Doctora Lulu. I feel like it's been a year since I spoke those words, but it's only been 2 weeks. But anyway, welcome to our guests, to our co-hosts, to everyone who's out there who's been just kind of cheering us on. The show is live, and yes, we curse. So if you don't want to hear people curse, listen to us anyway, because the way we say it sounds so demure and so mindful. But that said, my name is Dr. Lulu. I'm a mom of three, and one of them happens to be transgender. I'm also a radical activist and overall agitator of governors and legislators because somebody has to. What's up, Ellen? What's going on, Chica? How are you?
Hey, everyone. I'm great. I'm doing well. So good to be back in this space with you all.
Yes. I
We
missed
missed
all of
you.
y'all. I missed you. Kimmy, go ahead.
No, I said we missed her. I missed you. It's been a while.
It's been a while, but
We're
we're back.
back. And we
back.
have one person watching. So whoever is watching us, please let us know who you are so we can give you some love. We are also joined today by two very special guests. One of them is Ellen's child, believe it or not. I can't even believe it. Like, ooh, behave. Okay. Second one is Rochelle. Rochelle, please tell us who you are and where you're joining us from, and why did you say yes to coming on this podcast? Hi, Angela.
Well, first, thanks for having me. I'm unrelated to anyone here, but really grateful to have met you, Dr. Lulu, at a conference actually back in the spring. So I'm glad we are reconnecting now and part of this community. And we were at a conference that was trying to draw the link between just including, and not only including, welcoming, affirming LGBTQ folks who have connections to Black churches. So I can share more about my background, which is like, I'm not necessarily a person who has lots of connections to the Black church, but I'm in seminary and I had a mentor who encouraged me to be there. And I'm grateful if anything that came out of it is to be connected to this podcast and this group of folks. But I am, what else can I tell you? I use they, them pronouns. I am based in Washington, D.C., Chocolate City.
Yay, DC.
That's right? We're still here.
We love DC.
I'm glad. DC is my home city. It had to grow on me though. So I'm glad we got some other fans. And
I used to live in DC, so we love DC.
Me too. As a matter of fact, DC is my home base. I went to Howard, HU.
Oh,
You know.
You know.
we know. Okay,
Yes.
the bison's here. Okay.
Yes, and Kamala Harris is a bison. So yeah, go Kamala. Go Kamala.
That's right. Making you all proud this week.
Yes.
We're just saying. Just saying.
Yes.
So really great, happy to be here and to be here with Nico and representing the trans mask side of the spectrum.
Yes. This is something that we don't see often. I still remember our very first ever Black trans mask person from last year, an African American gentleman who actually assumed a Nigerian name. I was so excited to just meet one of them. It was like, oh my God, you're a unicorn. I remember saying that to him. And then since then, we've had some more people. Today's actually topic is going to be centered around, are Black trans mask people invisible? So to help answer that question is Nico. Nico, I want to say thank you to you. You have been the king of patience, because you were going to come 2 weeks ago, then you were going to come last week, and then finally your mom said you're still excited to come this week. So thank you, Nico. Why did you say yes to your mom?
Absolutely. Patience is key. And what better time than now? So I'm just happy to be here now. And I think what led me to say yes to this podcast is because, well, like, why not? How could you say no when we're having dialogue about loving, like, unconditionally across the board, for whether you're a trans parent, whether you're a trans kid, whether you're a trans adult and you want to reconnect with yourself, and be, I guess, just be in the most positive state, of joy. Because right now there's a lot of rhetoric that's being thrown out here that could probably be very hurtful to a lot of the new generation. So I'm saying yes for all the trans kids, and I'm saying yes for the parents and the allies. This is not just for me. This is for everybody who is in and out of the community. So I'm just happy to be here, and I love having dialogues about this because I feel like I'm kind of an expert on it because I lived on it. I live in it every day. So to talk
You
about
are.
it and
You
to
are.
share my experience is really I'm so thankful for the opportunity.
Wow,
Oh, man.
speaking like a true rebel. I mean, anybody who is Ellen's child definitely was born a rebel. I believe that living as a
Oh, thank
queer
you.
person, period, is a rebellion. It's a resistance. It is the way to go. And so, thank you so much for coming. I'm being so eloquent about it. And to just put the cherry on top is Kimmy, who blessed the show. Actually, Kim is the reason I didn't end up shutting down the show. I was going to shut down the show about a year ago, and Kim came with one of her two trans kids and said, "No, Dr. Lulu, not yet." And I was like, "Okay." So Kim, welcome. We missed you. It's been a month, I know, since you've
I
been on this.
know it's been so long, and I have so much to say and so much to feel, right? With everything going on, and I'm just so happy that we have you both, young people on the show, using their voice, telling us what they need, telling us what they needed. We're learning. I mean, this is an educational show, folks. I mean, so whether you're trans or not, whether you're a parent or not, whether you're black, white, whatever color you are, this applies to you. This applies to you because we live together. So I'm just so happy to be here. And Nico, just you own it. Own that.
Yes, yes.
You
We
own
love
it.
it when the
Every
children
day.
come.
It's a daily
We
thing.
had a pair of siblings come and just rock the stage one time. It was so beautiful. Ellen, was it you and I? Was it Kim and I? We had a pair of siblings.
Oh yeah,
that
and they were bickering back. It was hilarious.
it
First
was
of all,
beyond.
to see the sibling dynamic, right? They were like, "Dit, dit, 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 dit," and it was
Yes,
funny. It was a
yes.
show.
It
Yeah,
was
that
so
definitely
good.
was before. I don't remember that one, so that was before me.
It,
Well, I'll
it was
tell you
right
that.
before you. Wasn't very. It was a few episodes before yours, I think.
Oh,
Yeah. It was so good that they
It
actually
was so
made my
cute.
book. They made the book because I had to talk about them. You never know who's going to make my book when you come on the show, but it was amazing just watching them. I was like, is this happening live? Yes, it is. So we're not going to hopefully get any bickering today, but if we have to, then so be it. Welcome to everyone. I'm going to start with Richelle, mainly because I want Richelle to tell us a little bit about their story. Richelle, I can't remember. I know you said we met, but I can't remember where we met. So, Richelle, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your story and why you decided to live authentically? Because not, as you know, being Black in America, which I spell with three Ks, and then living as a trans masked person. What's up with that, Richelle?
What is up with that? So, uh, I'll start actually. First, it's so nice to be called a young person. I'm 30.
You're young to
Appreciate that.
me. You're young to me.
I'll take it. I'm 39, and
You,
so my coming of age was like, the 90s,
wait,
and
did you say 39?
I know. I'm like,
we,
wait, what?
I didn't want to say anything. I
Okay.
was, I was
Yeah.
going to
Like,
That
what?
was a
I'm like,
I
what?
tell you,
Mm.
yeah, 39, nice,
Wow, would have
1985.
never known that, Michelle.
Well, yeah. Honestly, well done.
Okay.
Well done.
Well, I appreciate it. It's melanin plus also like testosterone doesn't hurt. So
Yeah.
those two things
Facts.
are,
Facts.
are in our favor, right?
Facts.
Yeah. So yeah, my formative years were in the 90s, and I'm grateful to have a very affirming family. So I count myself among a few people that I know who just had unwavering support growing up. I was a pretty gender nonconforming kid, so I was always wearing boys' clothes. Like my dad would always come back from like trips because he would travel as a federal employee, and he would come back home with shirts for me and my brother, who are just a year and a half apart, and we would just get the same clothes. And I was like, great, because this is what I rock. And I had like I came to more of an identity of being queer when I was 14. So I appreciate that like some younger people in my life right now are like much younger than that and just know who they are and just live their truth, and they inspire me all the time. But I was 14, and mostly it's because I just didn't have language for it. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that like the feelings and experiences and also the intimacies I experienced were like different than other people. I just assumed at that time, I just put myself in the broad category of girl or woman. Like I just assumed like we just had all these intimacies. That's just how it worked. And I was like, oh, it's different. Got you. I'm in that bucket. And my mom often says like I knew much before you shared anything with me. So I could imagine that's an experience that you all may have had yourselves, or many people who come on the show do. So for me, there were a lot of surprises over the next like 15 years as I came more and more into my trans identity. So I came out of 14. I was doing activism around queer issues when I was a junior in high school. Mostly because that was the era of gay straight alliances, and that was like the way that we could be the most visible, like all 6 of us at my high school, right? To just be like, yo, we're here, and you're still lying about us. I don't know why you're panicked, and we're just trying to be here. And went line in line with like some other politics and other things I was developing at the time, because I'm like, these adults are really confused. Like I was just so clear about that, and even more confused now. Like convinced now that that's also true. Like I grew up in a very white, very rich evangelical community, and I was like, none of this makes sense to me. I just like our world's just really different, and it doesn't also have to be full of shame, right? The environment I lived in, folks were just so full of shame all the time, which never made sense to me. So I got politically active at 17. That continued for me through college, and I went to grad school after that. I went to law school. And at this time, like my identity was shifting a little bit as I got more language to understand my own experience. So as I got more language about non-binary people, I was like, yo, that feels like that's where I fit. Because I like neither of these genders quite fit. Woman definitely doesn't fit, but also man doesn't quite fit. So I like to be somewhere in the gradient. Like I have my own gender, and I just want to figure out what that is. So my pronouns began to change over time, and my identity began to change over time with different. So I tried on genderqueer, which was cool. That was really helpful. Gender fluid, and then when I understood that some people saw non-binary within the transgender umbrella, I was like, oh, that's helpful, because I do feel like, in addition to being not normative gender-wise, like I want to chart my experience of understanding that coming into my being. So trans helps folks, including myself, like honor that change. It's not a transition to another gender. I'm just into my own gender. So when 2020 came around, I also got hip to low dose testosterone or microdosing. And that felt like a really good solution for a person like me who was masculine of center and of a trans experience, but didn't feel like I was, again, trying to transition to become a trans man necessarily, right? So it's like, okay, this could just masculize my body externally and help me get more affirmed and be closer to my own gender. So here we are about, I guess, 4 years later. It's a little like it's 4.5 years later at this point. And a lot has changed about me. I also had top surgery. That was a really affirming experience. And Yeah, it's hard to remember. Like, oh wow, I was like a 38D. That just feels really different. It's like I cannot remember that time in my life. But so much more affirmed with top surgery and the low dose T, um, which I continue, and grateful to have access to healthcare so I can get all the healthcare I need.
Mm.
I'm grateful for, uh, like I said, my parents were so affirming and are still affirming. I have a really wonderful partner and just community. So I feel like the blessed 1% of trans folks who have so much support and have had the resources that I need. So I try to do everything I can to make sure that my other kindred are good too. But that's my story.
That is, I just want to like, what? We need people like you because, as you said, majority of the stories, first of all, majority of the people that come on the show, majority of the people that we see that are more visible are trans femme, like my kid who is not visible, but trans femme nonetheless. The story of the trans mask or the non-binary mask of center, we just don't hear about them. And then one who is fully affirmed both by community and by relationship. You are definitely a unicorn. So thank you so much for gracing our stages. What are your thoughts about? Actually, I'm going to hop on to Nico, and then Nico. Before you tell us your story, what are your thoughts about trans mask, Black transgender men being invisible? Well, actually, both of you, but I'll ask Nico first, and then come back to you.
Lulu, before Nico answers that question, I have a question for Rochelle. Your during your time of testosterone, how long did it take for you to find like the dosage or the right levels of it fitting, what you felt was a comfortable space for yourself? I think a lot of times, and I spoke to this to a friend of mine that about the importance of trans people advocating
Yeah.
when they are going to medical professionals, because I think sometimes there's this space of where they feel like, oh, well, just take this and this is it. And so it's that kind of going back of, this isn't the right fit. This isn't the right levels. And in speaking with my own therapist who said, who has older trans male clients, her mentioning that sometimes it takes years to find this right dosage or this balancing, if you will. So how did you kind of find that?
That's so true. That's so real my experience. So it didn't take long for me. Like it took me only 3 months to really find what low dose felt good for me because it's really a really individualized like preference about. Oh no, we lost.
We lost
Yeah, I
Kim.
lost Kim. That's okay.
So it's I started out at something like a very small dose, which is considered like 10 milligrams a day. I believe at least my provider said years ago that like the average for most trans men is like 80 milligrams a day, to give you some perspective. So I was on a very low dose comparatively.
You said a day?
A day.
Oh, wow.
10 milligrams a day. And, I'm a grown person too. So it's like that.
I wanted to also mention for anyone who's listening, we're not giving advice on dosing. The show is not about that. This is somebody's personal experience. Don't quote Ellen. Don't quote me. Do not quote Rochelle. This is Rochelle's story. This is Ellen's question. Nobody leave and say, well. No, just in case, because they will come. All right, my darling, go ahead. Great question,
Yes.
Ellen.
Appreciate that disclaimer. I am not a doctor. So not a doctor.
Yes,
you do not want my medical advice, but this is just to give like folks some concrete information about my experience. And also I feel like one thing, and I'm curious to hear, Nico, what your experience is. I think going into the process, I didn't realize how much we don't know about hormones and hormonal effects. It's because it could be so individualized. We know a lot, but there's a lot we don't know. So I started out on 10 milligrams. It took me about 3 months to get to a higher dosage because I wasn't seeing the changes I expected, to the degree that you expect any changes. So I bumped up to 40. And I was on that dosage for about 3 years. And now I'm at like this happy place where I feel like I'm about where I want to be. So on one hand, I am tapering now back my dose to be a bit less, quite a bit less. So instead of like 40 milligrams a day, I'm closer to like 10 milligrams every other day. So we're tapering back a lot. I might have to go up again if it looks like I'm having like reversals, for lack of a better word. So like I'm not interested in having my period, for example, and on this particular dosage right now, I'm not having periods, right? So I might have to adjust if I notice that changing. But part of the trick, especially as a non-binary, like trans masc person, is that like T is still cumulative, right? So it's in my body, it's making changes. So that's why it's important for me just to be really attentive about where I'm at and the changes over time and what my goals are, right, in terms of representing my gender at a particular time. So I'm in a pretty happy place now. So that's why I'm tapering it back, and we'll see if I might need to do the next number of months.
I love that perspective, because that just kind of tells us it's very, very bespoke, it's very individual. One person's dose may not work for another person with age and height. It's a personal experience, just like gender identity is. It's very personal. And I love how your story kind of wove from thinking you were trans to now saying, well, maybe it's more non-binary, or, you know, maybe it's my own personal gender. And that's why I wanted to hear what Nico had to say about that. Like, do you feel like you're like, you know, Richelle, you have your own personal gender, or do you fit squarely into one particular gender? What do you say, Nico?
I feel like it's important to define what those mean, because I think that there is definitely a duality in the sense between those two things. And the reason is because, and this is why the question of, it are Black trans men, are we invisible? Is the Black trans masc experience something that kind of just goes under the radar when it comes to addressing the the whole community? When we think of transgender, if you ask someone what they think or what comes up when they say transgender, and this is just my personal, um, I guess not opinion, but like my prediction would be that they would think like, you know, dude in a dress, hairy legs,
Yeah.
looking like a cross dresser, someone that and there's such a negative connotation with that too. You know, it's like it pours into the, like, the state, or not the state of, yeah, I mean the welfare, if you will, of Black trans women, and that compared to being a Black trans masculine person or a Black trans man, in my case, is vastly to they're two different worlds. And it, even within the Black trans community, there is a very strong bond between Black trans men and Black trans women, because it's like that there's that duality again. Like, sure, the experiences could be very varying. I think, to answer the question, Dr. Lulu, I think in certain contexts, I pass very well, and in other contexts, people can just sort of pick up on it, like I'm getting trans mask energy from you, and it's like that to me is very affirming, because typically it's when other queer people can see me or other allies can see me as well, and in the same breath, though, I go out into the world and I think I don't know, I still don't know exactly, like, how to internalize. I mean, outside of a simple like, thanks, I appreciate it, when someone tells me like, oh, I never would have thought that you're trans because you're passing. And it, to me, it's kind of, in a sense, it's like, so am I being told that because I don't look remotely trans, that I'm like, it's kind of like, I feel like it's similar to how in the police system, they cast off other disproportionate communities, saying, "Oh, you're one of the good ones," And for me, I don't know exactly how. Like, it's kind of like, thanks, but is the foundation of this reasoning in the way that I'm being judged or seen, is that logical? Is it logical to assert that to a transmasculine person? Probably. There's so many ways we can answer that, because
Yeah.
it's duality. So I'm a firm believer that two things can be true at once. So while I do have my own personal gender identity that I'm working on understanding in its full capacity, like every day, I think in the same breath, it's kind of like, also a little confusing, because why do we have to meet up to, like filling in these boxes and checking in these boxes, when in fact it's the concepts of a system is in this country for trans people. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm trying to mute this.
It's a live
uh
show. We say that all the
yeah.
time. Sometimes our dogs come into the show, sometimes our kids. So it's a live show. Go ahead, carry on. Love it, love it, love
I
it.
appreciate the grace. Thank you. Yes, I think that's, in a nutshell. I think that's how I would answer the question. Is I think that those two things could be happening, maybe not simultaneously, but they could. I feel like there are moments where that uh could sway. Like maybe some days I feel like I'm really, like, my gender identity, because maybe I've been affirmed in the real world somehow, and I feel like, oh wow, yeah, like this feels comfortable, this feels right. But then there are other times where I'm like, I don't know if I want to be like kissing the ground that somebody walked on just because they think that I'm passing and that I'm like good. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I want to speak to that because Nico brought up a good point when when people, and I want to kind of pivot a little bit and speak to when that comment is made to trans women. Oh, you don't look like a trans woman. And so it creates this dynamic and this narrative that there's a level of acceptance of what a trans woman should look like.
A woman, period. A black
Right.
woman, period.
And what people don't recognize is that making those statements or having this certain level of what a trans woman should look like creates these unsafe spaces for cisgender heterosexual women who may not be as feminine or
That's
who
what I'm
may
saying.
not
Yeah.
look, like what they think a woman should look
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
Cisgender heterosexual women may be tall and may have more of a masculine build. And what happens is that when people, constantly don't understand this space of when you are not protecting trans women, you're also not protecting women. You're
Period.
putting out there that there's this look that women should have. And so that creates this unsafe situation for cis heterosexual women who don't fall into this category. If they come into a room a little more masculine presenting, or who don't fit this mold. And I think that's, so what do you say to that? Do you say, oh, okay, thanks, because you know, or are you just like, well, or I think sometimes people don't think past
Mm.
the damage that could,
Well, that's what happened with the Olympic boxer. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes.
Serena Williams also has been accused multiple times of being a trans. I mean, can we shoot Michelle Obama?
Michelle Obama.
I'm so glad that we're talking about this. I do want people to just think before you open your mouth and say something. I think I have been guilty because I always like to talk about myself. There's the most beautiful person I met, when I was in San Francisco. I was like, wait, there's no way you're trans. I mean, I just could not believe it. I was like, wait, what? I was just as guilty. I was like, wait, what? How can she be trans? because I was thinking trans people need to look a certain way. So I love that. Kimmy, did you have anything to add?
I have all kinds of things to add, but my internet won't stay on. I don't know what's going on. Yes, thank you guys all for sharing. And I guess I can speak a little bit. I can appreciate the testosterone, finding the right level, finding your baseline. I have, my oldest, found their baseline, and they're taking, their shot on a once a week routine, and it's just level as can be. My youngest, who is, came to me, and I should say they're 17 right now, but they came to me, about 4 years ago, and said they were transgender. And that's, again, it wasn't my first rodeo. So we went down that path, but the testosterone level was.
Oh, dang.
Wow.
She's about to get to the good part.
Right there. It's like on the edge of your seat.
Well, we'll let her come back. This is why we say the show is live. We're at the bottom of the hour. The show is called the Moms for Trans Kids podcast. We come here every Sunday as much as we can to normalize conversations about transness, about blackness, about whiteness, about any colorness, since we want to put color to people's races, and the intersection of that and being gender non-conforming. My name is Dr. Lulu. My co-hostesses are Kim and Ellen, and sometimes we're joined by Chelsea, the current reigning Miss Trans Global USA. We are here today with two very different Black people. And I love that Richelle actually gave us a little bit more insight into their existence in the space that is neither male, nor neither fully trans male, nor even fully non-binary. They have their own gender. I love that. That's so beautiful. So with that in mind, I want to kind of hop on back to Nico, because Kim is still smiling, so that means she's not back. So Nico, what is your story, and how does that play into the current conversation of being visible, not being visible, but also knowing when did you realize, how were you affirmed? It looks like both of you had amazing stories. Both of you are actually very affirmed, which is amazing to be Black and be singing this beautiful song about being affirmed by community. Go ahead and tell us, Nico, with the beautiful dimple.
Yeah. My mom also has the same one too. So.
I know.
I am really thinking back to the time when I was around like 4 or 5, and I just remember having like this desperation to, like, I don't know, to be playful and to be boyish. Like I've known instinctually ever since I was 4, and like even when I would play video games and they give you an option to choose between a female character and a male character, I would always pick the male character. I always would take my birth name. I would take a portion of my last name, which is no longer my last name, but I would take that and use it as my first name, or as my nickname per se. And like, it was, I guess, when I realized, because thankfully my mom kind of like nurtured that and didn't, question it or be like, no, like that's not what you play with, like, or what makes you want that one? Like, why can't you just have this instead? Like it was never that. And I think that created, like it kind of opened the door for me subconsciously, as being so young at that time, because kids are very intelligent, spiritually very intelligent. They're very spiritually intelligent. Logically speaking, you can't ask them how many feet are in a yard, but you could ask them what makes you happy, what makes you smile, you can ask them these things. You can connect with them on that level. And they're not gonna have any hiccups about it, you know, like they can tell you, well, or unless they're like, well, I can't choose because I love everything. Maybe I want this or maybe I want that. You know, their kids are so they are a reminder of how beautiful life is. And so it's important for parents of trans kids to instill that within their own parenting style, you know, and to really just let them explore, you know, within safety, obviously. But I just think that, yeah, like not, you know, not having that in my childhood, it I don't know if I've ever if I don't know where I would be in my journey right now, if I'm being honest. And um yeah, when I was in like middle school and high school, I mean really all throughout school period, I just had that same inkling thought that like I'm just waiting. You know, I would be like 5 years old and I just had like this wanting to be a boy, and I couldn't have the language, you know, to explain it, but I just knew instinctually that I wanted to like see myself the way that I saw myself in, you know, um in my own context, my own personal context. And yeah, so like being a lesbian though is I guess what kind of like drove me to that point for me, because my mom is also a part of the community. So when I came out to her as bisexual in middle school, it was like, yeah, like did you forget? Did you know that I also? And you know, that also opened the door for me to be like, okay, well, being queer is I guess I have a
Go in.
blueprint to that. Like I guess I have a
Yes.
blueprint, you know, like I don't have to navigate this thing. And I didn't realize this until after, like a lot later, like, you know, passing and being in the world as a black trans man, and then being treated like a cisgender black man, and a, not being treated like a trans black man based off of how I pass and how I look. All of those things encompass the reason why it's so important to, when a child is developing and they are growing, um, first I would say understand that someone's view of their gender is inevitably going to change. Like there is no, you don't you don't have this one fixed idea of yourself or of other people for the rest of your life. That's just not how we, you know. So I understood more of these things as I transitioned and as I became more capable of nurturing myself, you know, in the same way that I've I've always had that, fortunately for me, by my mom. So I had to now like do that. The challenge is doing that as an adult, and then navigating puberty as an adult is that's kind of the challenge for me right now. But it's a good one. It's fun. It pays off nicely.
I definitely would like to come in here for two reasons. I would like to propose to my two co hostesses that we have the two of you come back. And I'll say why. When we have two guests, I feel like we never get deep enough with either one of them. So this is just me making an executive decision to have both of you come back. We often, not a lot of times, but we often have times where the guest doesn't show. So I'm asking before the show is over. But also because of the question that we just had somebody pose on Instagram. Thank you so much to Rayleigh for posing this amazing question. And for those of you who are watching, and even after the show is over, if you have any questions, send us an email. The email of the show is momsfortranskids@gmail.com. Remember the number 4, transkids@gmail.com. But this question says, what does masculinity and femininity mean to you guys? Like, how do you define that for yourself? I'm currently questioning those things. Did that my whole life as I see myself as very androgynous. This is such a beautiful question. This is why we do this show. Who knows for how long this person has been wanting to ask this question. So I'm just going to open it up to the two people who have the stage today. This is why I do this show. Thank you so much to the person who asked the question on Instagram. I'm going to open it to either one of you. Take it away. And let me turn on my light.
I will pass the mic to Rachel. You can do it. All right,
Oh, it's a good question. It's a big one too. I think, as you were saying, Nico, that as our understanding of ourselves change, I think also the understandings of these terms have changed a lot, especially as I've been more exploratory about my own gender, like the last 10 years or so. And really, I'm going to get just a little philosophical. To me, it's less important about how we define masculinity and femininity as certain traits or behaviors or way that we have to exhibit or behave within these ideas. And I think to the extent that that is helpful for folks, that's cool. But I think for me, it's much more thinking about just balance in the universe. And you can call it like pole A, pole B. To me, it doesn't matter as much, but it's really thinking about the ways in which just complements exist in the world. And I'm a person who, like many of us, has an affinity with nature. And I learned so much from nature. And I just think about the ways in which there's so many complementary forces. So in perhaps the human experience, to the degree that gender exists and is a thing, for some people at least, it's not even a thing for everybody, right? And that's why I'm really grateful that this person named androgyny, because we also have agender kindred, and they're just as rad, right? We have intersex folks who just like obliterate the idea of gender whatsoever, and I'm like, that's beautiful. So, I to the extent that having those complements help folks navigate the world or understand themselves or understand each other, that's what I think of masculinity and femininity. Because even I can imagine, Nico, I'm curious what your experience is, but even as a masculine centered person, what I call my gender is a gentle boy, BOI, because I'm a Southerner, and I'm just like a tenderhearted one, right? So like I'll go fierce for my people, I'll go fierce for my communities, but really I'm just a really soft person,
Yes.
and that's my masculinity, right? And so there's even nuances within the nuances, but that's what I love about gender too, right? I think there's so much to play with, and I think the more we can continue to just honor the diversity that exists, right, the better off we are. What do you think, Nico?
I think that was really, really well said, and I could certainly put my finger on many, many things that you just mentioned. I feel like, yes, for you to have gone philosophical, I think was honestly, I don't even think it would have been another like better way. Like why would you not go philosophical? Because how we idealize the perception of gender and gender roles and how we define those things, it's like that is such like the reason why it's so. I think that's the reason why some people do get surprised when I tell them I'm trans, and they are like, "Oh wow," like because maybe they feel like, okay, so maybe doing the math in their head, they're thinking, okay, so this person used to be a girl, and that is what is like the shocker. Like that is to think that someone used to look like this, and then, well, what's this? This is how I would define a woman, right? But what people don't know is that before I transitioned, I was always very masculine, and in fact, I would be misgendered a lot because I was masculine presenting. So, in that same breath, defining masculinity and defining femininity is, I think, the argument that a lot of people use, especially in with the far right and in the government, people who oppose transgender citizens in the country. that you have to be trans, you have to be also like doing the things that traditionally wouldn't be acceptable. And that's not always true. Like there's people like you and I who I also feel like I'm a softie too, but I also have
Yes.
where I'm just like really, really flamboyant. And it took me a minute to like really accept that. Because as a lesbian, I, you know, was just like, even though my gender was different, my view on masculinity is not the same view that I have today. And it is certainly not one that I would, I guess, hold on to because it just wasn't obsolete because things change as far as people expressing themselves. So when someone expresses themselves and they label it, oh, well, this is a masculine trait and this is a feminine trait. And these things that I do, I'm typically more, those things like that, it's just it's phenomenal. Like it could be anything. But I think we can use gender and defining masculinity for trans men could be very much partaking in the most feminine, traditionally feminine, um,
Mhm.
I guess, sort of maybe like ways that we communicate or ways that we present ourselves, because those things could be setting our inner child free. Like, yes, I'm a child and I'm trapped in this body, and I spiritually want to express myself like this, or verbally want to express myself like this, or emotionally want to express myself like this. But my body and my anatomy and the feedback that I'm getting from, seeing that image is not congruent. And that is where being trans is awesome, because we could take those things and say, you know what, I have these qualities of myself and I really appreciate that. I'm going to hone in on these things and I'm going to see where this takes me. And yeah, it takes hope to come to that place. It takes hope to come to that place, because there are some trans men that I have seen who are very they kind of revert to the same ways that cisgender homosexual gay
Waiting for
men
that.
Talk
with
about it.
trans
Talk about it.
men.
I was
And
Talk
it's
about
waiting for that.
I deal with it a lot, I deal with it a lot as someone who identifies as a queer trans man myself, and someone who, I mean, I've openly dated a trans man for 6 months, and that was my first relationship, and that taught me a lot about my trans masculinity. I've also dated cisgender men, and like I guess the difference is just like there's no need to have the it's like if you know yourself, you don't that's it. If you
I
know
want
yourself,
Period.
that's it.
I want to come in here because it's obvious just from listening to the two of you, especially to Nico, but even more so to Michelle, the fact that you both of you need so many words to describe it means it's indescribable. I want people to hone in on that because people wanted to, well, are you sure or are you not sure? Take two young adults. 39 is young. I'm almost 56. So 39 is young to me. And then a 22-year-old, I think Nico is 22. Between the two of you, you're about my age, but I want you to look at how many words it takes for you to explain it at this age. Imagine a 5-year-old whose mother is like, well, what are you? Are you a boy? Are you a girl? I want you to see how uneasy it is. Uneasy in the fact that it's not easy, not uneasy as in unease. To put the words together when it comes to gender, which first of all is a construct, but just the ambiguity of gender and why it's so hard for the two of you to answer a simple question, which the person asking the question probably also knew wasn't simple because they also use many, many words. And like now they said being
You
stuck
would
in
think they
one
knew.
body. Yes. Now, but that's the thing. You just know. You just know in your heart, but that doesn't mean you can explain it. And that's the beauty of this. So at my event coming up in November, I'm going to play sound bites from this, just the answers, so that the parents can hear the complexity of
Yes.
gender, even to people who are trans mask themselves. Why you shouldn't ask your 12-year-old child, well, what are you? Well, so if you're not sure, then maybe you're not. Just to kind of, I don't know.
What
Kim
are
and
my choices? I mean, that's
yeah,
what they're going to ask. I mean, strawberry, blueberry, grape. I mean, they don't have words to express it when they're younger. And I'm sorry
and
that
even when they're older, even when they're older.
even when they're older, exactly. And I was just writing some notes while you guys were talking, and I appreciate all you've been saying. But I just want to just remind you too that discovering yourself, it doesn't have an end date. You can be 53 on Monday in a week. You can be 53 in a week and still be discovering who you are. And I think that you guys are definitely a prime example of that. Growing up and experiencing that uneasy feeling, like you can't really pinpoint how I'm feeling or what I'm associating this feeling with. And and my kids put it to me to where I could understand that kind of feeling, that itchy feeling that you want to belong to something, you belong in a group, and but I've also, I don't like these labels, guys. I just, how I am. I'm always bucking the labels because it really doesn't really make you who you are, your label. I mean, are you a good person? Do you treat people well? But one thing that I really wanted to tell you guys, and because I've cut out so many times, but one of the things I wanted to ask you all, because you are who you are, when do you feel safe? I'm just going to ask that and just leave it there.
I'll also add before you answer that we have 8 minutes on the clock. And I would like for us to maybe kind of speed up a little bit so we can ask, so you can tell us where people can find you, because that's the next thing, where people can find you, follow you, support you and your work. As we give flowers to Earth Angel, who says mad support for Black trans men of color deserve tremendous support and equal access to healthcare. Much love. This is why we do the show, because there are lots of people out there who are also loving, and the noise of those who are not loving usually tend to be louder, but we have a lot of people who've been loving on y'all all day today. My Instagram is full of people who've been joining in and loving on y'all. But go ahead and answer Kim's question, and then whoever answers, tell us where we can find you, and then the next person, and then we'll call it a day. So, what's safety? Where do you find safety? What is the question on the table?
Nico, go ahead.
Okay, safety. I think I feel safe. I know I feel safe when I think when someone can see you talk, ever since you mentioned how soft a soft mask that you are, I am also very, and there's no limit to what that label comes with, obviously, but I'm a very versatile, expressive, I just believe in duality. I believe that I'm both feminine and masculine, and that I don't want to. It's not a battle for me to know, okay, which one is it going to be today. It's not that, it's really just the duality of it, and then embracing it when my mind starts to compartmentalize. But I think when I feel safe most is when I can do that openly with my friends, or do that in the presence of another stranger, even, if I simply greet someone and nod to them. I feel safe in my home with my mom. I feel safe around my other trans mask friends. I feel safe when I'm around other queer people of color. I feel safe around people who want to root for not only their happiness and the world's happiness, but my happiness too. And that's when I feel safe.
I love
Thank
it.
you. I think I heard you trying to choke at the end back there. This is so beautiful. Well said. I could tell by just from the two of you, how much you've been loved. Does that make sense? I can hear
Yes.
in your voices how much you have been loved. I don't hear the bitterness that usually comes with a trans mask experience, period, or trans experience. I don't hear that. And I wish I could go back now and undo all the harm I did with my own child. But like I always say, today is the first day of the rest of your life. So if today you hear what they're saying, you could change tomorrow how you treat your trans kids. This is so beautiful. Rochelle, take us home. We're 5 minutes on the clock, and then Ellen and Kimmy will give you their love for the week, and then we'll wrap it up. It's been an amazing,
Oh,
very deep show. Oh my God.
it's been beautiful. Thank you for having me. And Dr. Lulu, I think I want to build on what you said. I think that's a core piece of my experience of safety. Even though there may have been chaos in my home growing up, I was always very affirmed and loved. That's one thing that I didn't have to question. And it's something that as an adult, I reflect back on as being so important to my sense of self. And that plays into safety a lot. So for me, I feel safe most of the time, which is such a privilege. So some of that is because I am who I am with the people who surround me. Part of that's having a sense of security too. Just like this is just who I am. And um, that has been bolstered by the love that I've experienced, right? There's no like whispering in my mind about insecurities or my body should look this way or I should be this identity or I need to do this or that more, right? And that's why I mentioned shame at the beginning of the podcast about the environment I lived in, because I like at least my like community I lived in, because I just didn't understand to live from a place of shame. I'm like, doesn't that just shrink your world so much? So I'm grateful to feel safe most of the time, and I have a lot of people to thank for that. And I just want to continue to make those spaces available to lots of other folks, right? Because I know that is an outlier, including to some of the gender diverse kids in my life, right? It feels really important just to be like, hey, I'm here. I'm part of the future. It can be really beautiful and exciting here, and invite them to come along, right? And just trust yourself and be who you are.
Here I am. I'm part of the future. Oh my God. So powerful. Kim, any words for our beautiful, brave brothers today? Yeah, yeah.
I just want to give you both big virtual hugs. You'll never feel it like it is in person, but one day, maybe our paths will cross and I'll owe you that hug. But, feeling what I hear both of you saying is, feeling safe requires finding your people. It's always, I'm hearing it from both of you. It's my people at home who are supportive. It's my friends who get it. It's my coworker who I told might be a little shocked or surprised, and then they get on with things, So, I think it's finding your people is really going to help with the safety. But, for you all, I mean, I tell my kids every day to keep their head on a swivel when they walk out the door. I love you. Keep your head on a swivel. We kind of say it, but parents, they mean it, like I like to live in this happy time, in my head, but we know the reality of it is, there can be some dangerous areas. So just stay safe and find your people and receive the love.
Ellen?
I'm always going to say that I find a need to be educated more and more every show than what I can bring to the show sometimes. So just hearing both of you, even though, sorry for the loud motorcycles.
You don't want to know what I thought that was.
But it's so good to always hear different perspectives and different journeys, and just be able to take from that and then to educate and advocate for both of you. I think that's just always important, and always to move in a space of being empathetic, and just trying to just listen. Sometimes just not talking and listening is really important.
Every day, all day. What's your social media handle, Rochelle? Social media handle? Just type it in the comment section. We are out of time. The show is called Moms, the number 4 Trans Kids podcast. Whew, I have no words, and that takes a lot for me to have no words. But I have no words because I'm filled. It's been a very emotional day anyway. I went to a Black affirming LGBT plus church today, and I was just like, everything. They do exist. Black affirming LGBT churches do exist, and there's one in Atlanta, Georgia. But join us every Sunday. Thank you so much to everyone who came today to oh, okay. I think I should have just told y'all to type. Okay, so Rochelle is at Rochelle Faithful Healer on IG. I'm gonna put that, and I'm waiting for. Oh, and Instagram is gone. Yeah, because Instagram goes up once it's the top of the hour, so we're already checked out. But because at the top of the hour they just disconnect, so I can't even go back and post it. But I'll post it here for those who will watch it on YouTube. Please go follow Rochelle on IG at Rochelle Faithful Healer. And as soon as I get Nico's, I'll post it as well. Thank you also. Nico, did you write it down in the private
Yeah,
chat? Craig,
I
okay.
think I did it at the cutoff. Yeah.
That's okay.
It
Nico,
was-
no, because this is they can watch it on YouTube as well. So they
Yeah.
can follow me on
Oh,
YouTube. So
I see.
thank you, Nico A. Craig on Instagram and Rochelle Faithful Healer on Instagram. Thank you all so much for coming. Please tell your friends about the show. We would love more people to subscribe to the show so we can get the message out more. My name is Dr. Lulu. If you live in Atlanta area, and even if you don't live in Atlanta area, November 15th is a Friday. We're celebrating our first birthday of the podcast, Moms for Trans Kids podcast. Here in Atlanta, we're having a
yeah.
whole event complete with a band. I found a queer band that's going to be playing. They're called
Okay.
Weatherproof Atlanta. So cool. It's going to be amazing from 5:30 to 8:30. We're going to be just eating and drinking off of each other's love and celebrating parenting joy, celebrating our journeys. Please come join us. Every single dollar you donate is going to be going to my nonprofit, which is called the Tolulo's Angels Haven Inc. We're building homes and mentoring unhoused LGBT plus youth because somebody has to do it. So thank you all so much for coming to the show, for listening to the show, for being here. Gosh, Ellen, I promise not to be gone this long ever again. Kimmy, you have to promise us not to be gone this long again. Rochelle, Nico, please promise us you're going to come back.
I was gonna say we got to have a part 2.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll be here.
Have a part
I'm
2.
in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Rochelle, is that a yes?
Oh, I'm already in. I'm here.
All right, folks. Thank y'all so much. I don't know. How did you do that?
How'd you do that?
I
How
have
did you
no
do
idea.
that?
I didn't even
No,
do that. I just went like this.
Now we're all gonna.
What?
I have no idea.
Nothing.
Yeah,
my-
they're feeling the energy out here, you know.
I don't know if it's like this.
Well,
I
first
don't
of
know.
all, Nico, I'm going to be meeting you next month. Your mom is bringing you to meet me in LA. So we're going to be meeting. And
Yay!
whoever can come to LA, I'm going to be in LA October 16th through the 19th. So come and let's meet. I'm going to be at Loyola Marymount the University, giving a whole talk about the state of the Black woman in academia. So it's going to be amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So thank you all so much. I don't want to go, but we have to.
It's been a joy.
1 minute summary. Everybody give 1 minute to give one message to the trans children who are listening by chance to this show on YouTube. Start with Kimmy. One message, 1 minute, and then pass the baton to whoever you like. I'm out.
All right. My babies, find your people. Discovering who you are has no end date. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Just live in the moment. Enjoy whatever activity it is you're drawn to. Enjoy whoever you are drawn to. And be a kid as long as you can. That's it. I love y'all. I will be here next week too. So. Yay.
All right. Who are you giving the baton to? Who are you
I'm
passing
gonna,
the flowers to?
I'm gonna give it to Ellen for now.
All right, Ellen.
All right. I'm gonna say lean into the people who love you. Lean into the people who support you, the ones that love you authentically. Find that safe space in those people, because there will be people who will kind of put up a barrier and find opportunity to not really value who you are. So start to learn how to not only value the people who love you, but also value yourself.
All right. Who are you passing the flowers to, Mama?
I'm going to pass it to Michelle.
Thank you. I'll just reiterate, please trust yourself and don't let other people convince you, right, of something you already know. And we're all learning and growing. So try to teach it, allow it to be a teaching opportunity.
That's a good one.
And let me pass it to Nico.
I would say find your inner peace. Find your inner peace. And it does not matter where you are in your transition. If you're transitioning, if you're not, all of the answers, you have all of the answers. And if you find your inner peace and you focus on the things that bring you hope and bring you optimism and joy, peace, serenity, calmness, all those things, light tomorrow with today by finding your peace. And if you do that diligently every single day, you will start to realize how beautiful life is, even in the midst of struggling with something, because the struggle is just as beautiful. So it is about the journey and not the destination. Find your inner peace. That's what I'd say.
What a smart young man you have raised, Ellen. And for me, I want to just end by saying, remember, you do not have to invite everybody into your world. So I don't like to say coming out, I like to say inviting in. So you do not have to invite everybody in. You get to choose who you want to reveal your beautiful, authentic self to. And yes, look for God in everywhere, and then you will find God everywhere. No one can take your God from you. My name is Dr. Lulu, and I am out. Peace, love, and soul. Bye, y'all.
Yes. Bye. Bye.